You all recognize the newly installed deity of Ramacandra. Very beautiful, beautiful deity in Ayodhya. Because this Sunday is 1 week ahead of next week's Sunday, which is Ram Navami. This week is dedicated to warm up for Ram Navami. And this evening's class, or the Sunday program class, is on the appearance of Lord Ramacandra. A nice place to begin is from Sri Brahma Samhita. Now, Sri Brahma Samhita isn't just dedicated to Lord Ramacandra, it's dedicated to Govinda. But Ramacandra and all of the other expansions of the original personality of Godhead, we discussed that yesterday evening, the original personality of Godhead, from whom all other expansions come, eternal expansions, but there's a source, and that's Govinda. So in Sri Brahma Samhita, there's a verse dedicated to Rama and all the others, Rama Adi, Murti Shukala, Niyamena Tishtan. So here we go. There's a nice recording. This is Mahatma Prabhu. Hopefully technology is going to work.
Krishna Sayam Samabhavat Paramanumanya Govinda Hare Krishna Mahambaja Govinda Hare Krishna Mahambaja
So Ramadi, beginning with Rama, and then the plural, Murtishu, in different forms. There are Kala, there are portions of the plenary portion, and their direct expansions, non-avataram, various avatars that appear from Govinda. And Krishna is the original Govinda. Krishna Swayam Samabhak Paramak Pamanyo Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Here is Prabhupada's translation. I worship Govinda. Here Krishna is expanding himself into various forms of Narayana from each one of the cowherd boys and calves, displaying all of this before Lord Brahma. The primeval Lord who manifested himself personally as Krishna, and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Nrsinga, Vamana, etc. as his subjective portions. Subjective portions. What does that mean? Subject, object. So Krishna is the object and there's the subject. The expansions of Krishna are his subjective portions, and he's the object. Here's a very nice, many of you have seen this, is a nice poster depicting one of the verses, or many of the verses of Sri Brahma Samhita. On the bottom is Devi Dham. Above Devi Dham is Mahesh Dham. Above Mahesh Dham is Hari Dham. And above Hari Dham is Golokadam. That's another verse from Sri Brahma Samhita. Golokanamni, Nijadamni, Tale Chatasya, Devi, Maheshu, Haridama Surteshu, Teshu, Tete Prabhabani Yatashri, Govindam Adipurusham. So here's a close-up of just below Goloka Vrindavan is Haridam. And at the very, very, very top of Haridam, look at the bottom of the poster and the screen there, and that's Ayodhya. So what that means is, we discussed this yesterday, but Ayodhya is at the topmost position of Vaikuntha or Haridam. Topmost because the personal features, the sweetness features, the human-like features of Rama are super excellent compared to the features of the form of the Lord Narayana in Vaikuntha. There in Vaikuntha, he has forearms, and he has four symbols of Vishnu in his forearms, four hands. And he's exhibiting majesty, Aishvarya, mightiness. In all of the realms of the spiritual world, he does. The Aishvarya, the opulences of the Supreme, Shad Aishvarya Purna, complete opulences. And Ramacandra has those same opulences. In addition, however, there's a feature of Ramacandra that's human-like. And that which is human-like tends to supersede the opulence. And then you go up, up, up. And the opulence of Krishna is sometimes manifest, but the residents of Goloka, they only see him as one of them. There's an intimacy, a sweetness, a madhurya feature that's present to a lesser degree in Ayodhya, but a greater degree in Ayodhya than the rest of Vaikuntha. I hope it's clear. That is to say, the abode of Lord Ramacandra in the spiritual sky is very special. Now, our topic is the appearance of Lord Ramacandra, and he's known through the Ramayana. This is a nice painting. This is Hayagriva, the form of Lord Vishnu with the head of a horse, Hayagriva, and he's giving to Lord Brahma the original Ramayana. 1 billion verses in the original Ramayana given by Hayagriva to Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma gave the Mula Ramayana, the entire 1 billion verses, to his disciple Narada Muni. Narada Muni. In turn, Narada Muni spoke the summary in 74 verses. That's kind of mini, but 74 verses. And he spoke to Valmiki. Here's a nice painting. Seated by the side of Valmiki is Bharadwaj, and he has a little cottage with some laundry hanging. That's his cottage. And there's some water pots, etc. And there's Narada giving these 74 verses to Valmiki. And it's another similar painting depicting on the left side, he's speaking. On the right side, Valmiki is offering his respects to Narada, either coming or going. And up in the upper right, there is he's going. Narada's departing after speaking 74 verses of 1 billion verses. And after he leaves, for 1 muhurta, it's 48 minutes, Valmiki is meditating on what he heard. And after meditating on what he heard, he went with his disciple, Bharadwaj Muni, to the side of the river Tamasa. And when he went to the river Tamasa, he saw what we see in this painting here. There's a krancha bird or a heron or crane that was shot with an arrow by a hunter. That's that fellow on the left. And he, Valmiki, who is a perfectly elevated sage, who never becomes disturbed by anything in this world, na sochati na kangsati, samaksarveshu bhuteshu, etc. He's on the liberated platform. But when he saw this, much to his surprise and much to Bhardraja's surprise, he became really angry at the hunter. And he uttered a curse of the hunter, against the hunter. And the curse goes like this. This is very early in the entire Ramayana. Of course, there's the Sanskrit verse. Oh, hunter, because you have killed the male bird and separated it from its companion when they were approaching the peak of their passion, you will be condemned for all ages to come. May you never find peace of mind, endless years. Bhardraj Muni heard him speak like this, and he didn't say anything. He didn't say, my dear sir, this is unbecoming to speak harsh words like this. But it was, we'll hear in a moment how it came out of his mouth. It was inspired by the goddess of learning, Saraswati. And this verse is an expression of grief at seeing such horrible thing, a profound expression, be cursed, the hunter. And our acharyas, particularly Govindaraj, he identifies this is the Mangalacharana verse of the entire Ramayana. What's a Mangalacharana verse? It's introducing the topic and expressing the glories of the topic. The glories of the topic is shoka, or grief. Because much of Ramayana, or the story of Ramacandra, is incident after incident after incident of grief. No, it's an unpleasant, materially speaking, it's an unpleasant series of events. And we could list this unpleasant series of events. But it inspires the reader in two ways. One, there's an emotion that's shock or grief or sadness. The English translation of the early portion of Ramayana, they use the word sorrow commonly. Sorrow or grief, shoka. But there's some good news, that grief is a stimulation of love. Could you say that again? Grief is a stimulation of love? Sure. There's a teaching, not only Rupa Goswami, but a background teaching of all Vedic literature and embedded in Ramayana itself. We'll hear as we go further with this week's discussions on the topic of Ramayana. There are different lessons, and one of the lessons is the lesson of rasa. In the lesson of rasa, is that little one? Sounds like a bird. Okay. The lesson of rasa, this is Rupa Goswami framing the topic of rasa, bhakti rasamrita sindhu. Rasa has 5 primary sthai bhavas, steady ecstasy. 5. First one, neutral. Servitorship, friendship, parental affection, conjugal love. 5. And those primary rasas are supplemented by secondary rasas. And the secondary rasas enhance or increase or amplify the primary rasa. The primary rasa is steady. Sthai bhava, steady, ecstasy. And then sometimes, and sometimes, and sometimes, and sometimes. So the secondary rasas serve to stimulate the primary rasa, enhance it. So one of those secondary rasas is this one, shoka, or astonishment, or what we would say is sadness or sorrow. So that's how it's translated. But we should understand. Rupa Goswami helps us understand that these secondary rasas enhance the primary rasa. So his father, his mother, the citizens of Ayodhya, you name it, everybody felt to hear what's the storyline. Whoever's making this noise, this child, could something be done? Whoever is in charge of that child that's making the noise, please do the needful. Children in classes don't always go well together. Something about it. You want to do some traffic control? Can you just go ahead and interrupt class? Tell them what to do. Because there's another distraction and then another distraction, and then we can settle down. Okay. Try to pick up where I left off. Secondary rasas. And then there's mixtures that are compatible and mixtures that are incompatible, and there's a whole science of rasa. But the principle is 5 primary, secondary rasas enhance the primary, and this event of shoka or sadness or sorrow enhances the primary rasa. It's an ecstasy. Here's another detail. Each of the 7 secondary rasas have a presiding deity, a form of Vishnu that presides over that secondary rasa, because it's a relationship of love with the Supreme. And guess who is the presiding deity of Shoka? You guessed, Ramacandra. He rules. It's his secondary rasa, or he's the ruler of that secondary rasa. And there's a lot of it. And that's Ramayana. So there we go. The Mangalacharana verse. So after he spoke like this, he went back to the ashram. And he was contemplating, you see, this is a B.G. Sharma, very nice B.G. Sharma painting. There's the hunter in the background. There's Valmiki sitting at his nice little ashram. And he's wondering, where did that come from? It's completely out of keeping with the nature of a sadhu and my nature. I never speak like this, but I spoke a curse. Never, ever will you get peace in birth after birth to suffer. Blah, 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 blah. Wow. That's not a sadhu. That's something else. So while he was contemplating, where did this come from? Lord Brahma descended, as you see in this nice B.G. Sharma painting, and Brahma spoke to Valmiki. And he said to Valmiki, it was I who arranged you to speak like that. I inspired Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to speak these verses through your mouth. And I give you a series of benedictions. I know the entire Mula Ramayana, 1 billion verses. Narada spoke to you at 74. I know the entire, and I'm going to impart not only the narration, but you're going to realize everything. And everything in relation to Ram, Lakshman, Sita, Bharata, and the Rakshasas, everything that they did and everything that they felt, whether they express it or not, everything known and unknown to everybody will be known, not known by you, even not known by you, will reveal to you. Woo. And I want you to write it. He was authorized by Lord Brahma to compile. Now, the Valmiki Ramayana is not 1 billion verses, and it's not 74, but it's Valmiki's composition, summarizing, in a sense, the entire Ramayana. And with it, it's not his speculation. Maybe Ram felt this, maybe Lakshman felt that. He knows their feeling, spoken and unspoken. Everything was revealed to him. And he imagined. And all he had to do was, in eloquent language, write it down. Now, there's a certain, that verse, that's the Mangalacharna verse, during his time, it was unique meter. It was an Anustup meter. It's the same meter as much of Bhagavad Gita, same meter, because there's different meters of different length. But most of Ramayana is in that same special meter. And he composed the whole Ramayana in that same meter, which makes it very easy to recite. Some people have a little struggle with Sanskrit. I'm one of them. But, it makes easy recitation. And then people would, they didn't have reading and writing. They just heard and repeated and heard and repeated. And that's how they learned Ramayana, just by hearing and repeating. Lots of hearing and then repeating. So his Ramayana, 24,000 verses, each with this same Anustup meter, each line 8 syllables, etc. And Valmiki then takes us in Ramayana to Ayodhya, which is the birthplace of Lord Ramacandra. Now here's a very beautiful photograph of the river Sarayu, and on the backside of river Sarayu, that's the city of Ayodhya. Or here's another modern photograph of the city of Ayodhya, built on the shore of the river Sarayu. And as the narration of Ramayana begins, we find there's Dasarath, who was ruling in Ayodhya for a long time. How long? 60,000 years. And he was virtuous, he was heroic, he was powerful. He was a Rajarshi, he was a great, great personality. But sorrow, no son, no son. So he then went down the procedure of doing what kings would sometimes do. He married a second wife. And he married a third wife, and he married a fourth wife, and he married a lot of wives. He married a wife for each day of the year. 365 wives, no son, plus his 3 principal queens. No son, no son. And he is feeling sorrow because it's part of his duty as a king. He's doing everything else perfectly well, but he's to produce an heir, a successor to the throne. No son. There was one daughter. She becomes an important person in the whole of the Ramayana, but the lady wasn't going to become the queen. There was no such thing at that time. And so he acquired a son. Then he got this inspiration. Maybe if I perform an Ashvamedha Yagya, with qualified brahmanas here in our kingdom, an Ashvamedha Yagya, then maybe I'll be able to have a king. So as he's expressing this, he expressed it to his personal servant. His personal servant was named Sumantra. Sumantra also happened to be his chariot driver. He did lots of nice things, Sumantra. So Sumantra said, oh, there's this wonderful narration that were spoken by the 4 Kumaras, particularly Sanat Kumar amongst the 4 Kumaras. And Sanat Kumara, told this whole long history, long, long ago, of something that would come to pass sometime in the future. It's like, it's a Purana. It's like he was narrating a history that he heard that Sanat Kumar had said. And Sanat Kumar, then comes this lengthy description of the plan to have an Ashwamedha Yagya. And it's a long description. I'm not going to go into it because it's too long. It's not really right on the topic. But Risha Shringha was a Brahmana by birth. There's details of how that happened. And then one of the ancestors of Dasarath went to bring Rishishringha to perform a yajna. And there was an intrigue and this and that. His father didn't want him to go, and this and that, and this and that. So many Puranic narrations, details. And then Rishishringha became captivated by a female. And he followed the female because he hadn't seen a female. He was living in the forest with his father. And he followed the female. And sure enough, he went to another king. The other king was named Romapada. That's my name, by the way. And the princess, who was the adopted daughter of Dasarath, married Rishishringha. It's a very complicated, Purana. What can you do? Itihasa. So they married. And then Sanat Kumar described that the day would come when Rishishringha would come and perform a Ashvamedha Yagya for King Dasarath, so that he would get these three boons. This is Sanat Kumar saying in a history literature that Samudra knew about. Excuse me, not Samudra. Sumantra. So 3 boons. The Ashvamedha Yagya would be successful. The success of the Ashvamedha Yagya is 4 sons would be born to Dasarath, and as is in keeping with the mood of Ramayana, ascension to heaven. Doesn't say he went back to Godhead, though he went back to Godhead. The mood of Ramayana is following Dharma. And those who follow Dharma, they go to heaven. So that's the theme or the type of message that Ramayana has. So that was really encouraging. Sumantra described all of this to Dasarath. So Dasarath rubbed his hands together. He then went to see his dear friend, King Romapada, whose daughter was adopted by the king. And they were very happy to see one another in festivals and this and that. And at the end, he asked the king for a favor. The favor was his son-in-law, Rishishringha, could accompany him back to Ayodhya. And in Rishishringha, the Brahmana Rishishringha, could perform 2 yagyas, an Ashvamedha Yagya and a Putra Kameshti Yagya. And the king, Romapada, agreed. So there they are, back in Ayodhya. It took 1 year to arrange all the paraphernalia and this and that, the other thing, and there's a whole procedure. Details. The horse was selected, and so forth and so on. Meanwhile, in the heavenly realm, there was a little problem. And the little problem was Ravana. It was not a little problem, it was a big problem. And Ravana was causing turmoil in the whole universe. So this is while Dasarath wants a son, Ravana was doing the Ravana. It was creating turmoil in the universe. So the demigods went to the abode of Lord Vishnu and offered, as you see in the nice painting, they offered prayers to Lord Vishnu. Help! Please do something. Ravana is tormenting all of us and everyone in the universe, not just the demigods, but there's nothing. He's too powerful. Help! And so Lord Vishnu consented that he would appear, and he appeared. Now there was other details that he requested the demigods, you create offspring in the earthly realm, and this offspring then can help me in the conquest to defeat Ravana and his massive army. So meanwhile, back in Ayodhya, 1 year later, after all the rituals, etc., were observed, and the yajna began, and the fire was lit, and the mantras were chanted, and big event, and just at the very end of this 1 year ordeal, arising from the fire came this celestial being carrying a pot of payasam, thank you. And he offered that to Dasarath. And there's the Brahmanas on the right side, there's the celestial entity offering the celestial beverage to King Dasarath. Behind King Dasarath are his three principal queens. We don't find anything out about that. The other 365 ladies, they just were celebrating. The king's finally going to have a son. And so Dasarath decided, this is the culmination. This is what I've been waiting for 60,000 years. And now what to do with this one pot, because I have 3 wives. So this is what is described in Ramayana. And we're almost done, by the way. Dasarath gave half the payasam to Kaushalya, the senior queen. And that left another half. So half of that other half, or 1/4, went to Sumitra. And then half of what was left went to Kaikeyi. And then deciding what to do, he gave the remaining 1/8 to Sumitra. So Sumitra got 2 portions. She had 2 sons. That makes 4 sons. 1 plus 2. What's the math? 1 plus 1 plus 2. That's 4. Okay. 4 sons. 4 sons. And look at this. This is a nice painting. Here's the 3 queens, 1 son, and 2 sons, making 4 sons. And Vishishta, he gave names. There's the king, and there's the Brahmanas doing the yajnas, and there's Vishishta, who's going to give names to each of the 4 sons, and corresponding to their astrological chart, and then their character, they were given names. We're going to hear more about that in coming evenings or gatherings where we discuss Ramayana. And that gives us a little picture of the appearance of Lord Ramacandra, the son of Dasarath. And of course, Ramacandra was, in the painting, it shows one of the children is of darker complexion. Ramachandra's complexion was like freshly hewn grass, a greenish coloration. Krishna's coloration is shama, like a fresh rain cloud. And Ramachandra's coloration is like that of freshly hewn grass. And then the other 3 sons of a fair complexion. The eldest, they were born close to one another, but the eldest, the firstborn, was Ramachandra. So by law, by Vedic law, by tradition and Vedic practice, the eldest son was to become the next king. So 4 sons, but 1. So those 3 brothers were super compatible with one another. They were totally non-envious. They loved Ramachandra like everyone loved Ramachandra. And they were very happy that he would become the king. And then something else happened. We'll hear about the something else that happened. So here's our final little illustration. There's Hanuman and others, the three brothers, worshiping Lord Ramachandra. Down below, curious little painting. It shows some of the Leela that took place in Ramayana. That's a nice painting. So the advent of Lord Ramachandra. We just discussed the topic. Any discussion? I mean, most of you, if not all of you, know the story. So it's not a new story. But if there's some topic that you'd like to discuss, you just recited what you all know anyways. I see him. Where's the microphone? It's on already. Look at that.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was wondering if you can elaborate a little more on how grief leads to love.
It's not that it leads to love. It rests upon love. When there's love and there's some misfortune, and this is on the spiritual side, there's the material side is I have something and I lose it. And I feel grief. Or I don't have something and I want it, so I feel grief. Shoshati kangsati, hankering, lamenting. That's, etc. And variations on the theme of material grief. But spiritual grief, how it enriches love is there's foundations. I'll say it again. The sthayi means steady. Sthayi bhava, steady ecstasy. And it's there. And it's moving. It's dynamic. The ecstasy is dynamic. Ecstasy isn't stagnant. It's very dynamic. And when that ecstasy mixes with something that looks like misfortune, then the ecstasy rises. The love that's foundational, or the ecstasy that's within the relationship of rasa, rises by that event that looks like, or, oh. So those emotions, the secondary bhavas or secondary ecstasies, they stimulate what's already there, love that's already there. Then there's different flavors, vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, chocolate chip, so many flavors of rasa. And that thereby there's diversity, but the diversity is resting upon 5, and the 5 is resting upon 1, relationship of different rasas or flavors or mellows of love. So it enhances, doesn't create. So then here's another question. Where does one get the sthayi bhava from? Is there a Kmart or something? It's intrinsic to the soul. It's of the soul. There's a relationship of all souls with the source, and that relationship has subdivisions, but 5 main categories. And it's all a relationship with the Supreme. The jiva, in his relationship with the Supreme, has a relationship of a certain category, or rasa, or mellow. And then there's mixing of mellows.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Lord Chaitanya is giving us access to Madhurya Rasa.
Well, he's encouraging, but we have whatever the rasa is. Here's a nice question. Tamal Krishna Maharaj asking Prabhupada, can rasas change? And Prabhupada's answer, primary rasa. That was his question. Tamal Krishna asking Prabhupada, can primary rasa change? Yes. Prabhupada, he didn't say how. He didn't give that like technology. Prabhupada's answer was, Spiritual life is not stagnant, it's dynamic. Now, he didn't offer an explanation. Don't ask me to explain what Prabhupada didn't explain because I don't have the answer. You can ask me, but I don't know the answer. What's the technology? I'll say you're doubtful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Primary rasa may be like a primary in majority time, like
That's not what primary rasa means. Majority of the time it's this, and then some of the other time it's that and the other thing and the other thing. That's what you're saying. And that's not what primary rasa is. It's sthayi. Sthayi means steady. Not so. It's a nice idea, but that's not what sthayi bhava means. And rasa is resting. There's a metaphor that's given to explain rasa, and one of those metaphors that's used to explain rasa is there's an axle, and on the axle there's a wheel, and when the wheel turns, the axle turns, not the axle turns the wheel. The wheel turns the axle. The steady ecstasy is steady. The axle is steady, and the wheel affects to the end of the axle, or the two ends of the axle. The wheel turns, and there are things that turn the wheel, and those are called udipana, stimulations of steady ecstasy, and those stimulations create, or the byproduct of that stimulation is rasa. And there's a certain mellow with this or that or the other rasa. And there's categories, and then there's subcategories of those categories. But I invite you, rather than let's have a Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu class, you study Nectar Devotion and sort it through. The first 19 chapters. What comes after that is a little more involved, and then after that is a little bit more involved still. But if I invite you, I request you to learn more about this, read Nectar of Devotion, which is a summary study, and then if you really, really, really want to go deeper with it, read Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. They're different translations from Sanskrit to English. I'm just giving a kind of a 30,000 foot overview of the science. But back to that question, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, it's a celebrated question and question answer. And his answer was, spiritual life is not static, it's dynamic. Without an explanation.
I have a question.
No, wait a minute. Wait, he's got the microphone. You hang on. You're done.
No technology.
What?
There's no technology.
There's no description of it. There's cause and effect. Things happen, and Krishna is the cause. So if Krishna, who's the original cause, wants, this can become that. No problem. No problem at all. No problem at all.
All glories to Krishna and Radharani and you too, Maharaj.
Speak slowly.
My question is,
Speak slowly. You're doing fine. Just speak slowly.
sure.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
I'm curious to know about the primary deities of each secondary rasas to reach Sri
Oh,
Krishna
this
and
is a
Radha.
Nectar Devotion class, and you'd have to take a Nectar Devotion class. Study Nectar Devotion. I'm not going to do it. It'll take a month to do it properly. Have you taken Bhakti Shastri?
Yes.
Yes.
I think I forgot. which
Okay.
I did.
Go to your teacher and ask your teacher, could you remind me of those lessons where we discussed this topic? Because this isn't, it's too lengthy to discuss right now.
And how do we know that, primary rasa of us and secondary rasas, like, how to reveal, like,
Well, you
how
it's
to
revealed.
identify.
It's revealed, and it's revealed through the process of bhakti.
Since it is dynamic, like, how do
Let me finish my sentence before you interrupt. Thank you. It's revealed through scripture, and it's revealed through mantra, and it's revealed through the spiritual master. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one gets the mantra and the scripture, and by practicing bhakti according to Guru Sadhu Shastra, then that which we couldn't understand, we start to understand. And gradually, as purification takes place, the covering of illusion is dissipated, and the reality becomes apparent. But it's again dynamic. It's like the rising of the sun in the morning. So, how does the sun rise in the morning? What's that like? What's it like? What's the process of realizing my rasa? It's the process of purification. And then the secondary rasas aren't exactly revealed. They're identified by the acharya, by Rupa Goswami and others. And you can discern, if you become so spiritually elevated, your spiritual intelligence becomes more sharp and more acute. And then one can discern this stimulation, that stimulation. But the main dynamic is the experience, not the analysis of. And if you have scriptural knowledge, and this changes to that, there's no clouds in the sky, so it's a bright light, and then some clouds come, and then it becomes like it is now, so you can perceive, and why we can't get the fullness of the sun. But the main thing is, what the experience is. Rasa is an experience. And there's ways to using the intellect that comes from Guru Sadhu Shastra, one can discern this, and then that, and then the other. It gives tools to evaluate what's going on. But the main thing is the experience. Rasa is an experience of the soul's relationship with the Supreme in various permutations, combinations, using Prabhupada's phrase, different manifestations of that experience. And it's an exchange of love with the personality of Godhead. So those things become revealed unto the sincere person. And we have to become pure. That's the price, purity. And then things, when their purity is there, things become revealed through those three sources, as I mentioned. Now, your next question.
That's it, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is that how can we come in Ramji's bhakti? How can we do bhakti for him?
You hear him. How does bhakti begin? The answer, how does bhakti begin?
Yeah.
Two things. Shraddha, you know the meaning? Faith. And then sadhu sangha, you know what that means? Association with devotees. Because what do devotees do? They glorify personality of Godhead. Supposing you have someone who is a Ram Bhakta. You know any devotees, Ram Bhaktas? I know some. Listen to a Ram Bhakta with a little faith, and something happens. There's an experience. And that experience, you feel it. And it stimulates that love from that sadhu sangha. It's mainly, the medium is through sound, but in doing service to that sadhu. And it's the whole dynamic of a relationship starts to unfold through the primary activity of hearing and chanting. Just like we're doing right now. Just like when we came in, you were singing very nicely. That's nice. And that you enjoy and others were enjoying. And probably as you grow, you'll become a little older, a little bigger, a little more mature, your voice, you'll become better and better and better by hearing and serving in the association of sadhus. That's how. Nice. Very natural. Very simple. This young devotee has her hand up, so you pass the microphone back.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for your class. I had a question. You already addressed this topic when you were answering Mataji's question. And when you were giving your presentation, the same topic kind of struck me. It's this revelation, like revealed in the heart. When Lord Brahma and Valmiki, he was kind of like, how did this happen? This is out of character. And Lord Brahma came and he, gave this boon that everything will be revealed to you, the spoken and the unspoken.
1 billion verses and everything else that's not in the 1 billion verses. That's powerful.
Yeah, my question was like this process of revelation. I guess in bhakti, we don't really talk about it as much. We usually, address like hearing and chanting and like studying and like, but how can I understand this revelation process?
Simple. 1, 2, 3. The hearing, chanting, doing, that's sadhana. And we know what sadhana, if done, when done properly, this is Patanjali Yoga Sutra, abhyasa, practice. He gives a definition. So things that are authorized by scripture, you do them every day for a prolonged period of time with faith or with confidence. There's Sanskrit terms for each of these. It's going to take me to a good place. So purification, practice. This is going to contaminate, so I stay away. That's going to purify, so I go towards. Every day, prolonged period of time, so purification comes. And when purification comes, what's underneath that, which is what has become purified, there's something there, our pure consciousness that before was contaminated by stuff. So as the stuff is removed, then the pure consciousness is remaining. And that's where revelation occurs. And then so by the same activity of hearing, then I start to hear better or more accurately or more precisely or more in alignment with what that sound vibration is. Then that's the realization. It touches, that sound vibration touches my consciousness. That's called revelation or realization. We already know, but it's covered. You remove the covering, and then you know. And then it's confirmed by Guru Sadhu Shastra, but it's an experience. That's revelation. The price is purity. And the purity comes from faithfully performed, properly formed, carefully performed, regularly performed, for as long as it takes performed practice coming from the proper source. Anything else? Yes, way over in the front.
Krishna Guru Maharaj. So my question is, who wrote the Mula Ramayana? Who wrote the Mula Ramayana?
Guru?
No, Mula Ramayana.
Mula Ramayana. Okay, Mula. Okay. What do you want to know about it?
Who wrote it?
Who did it?
Yeah.
Who authored it?
Yeah.
Well, Rama, I presume. I mean, it was revealed. Hayagriva gave it to him, but where'd Hayagriva get it? it's an eternal, presumably, an eternal sound vibration that, why only 1 billion? Why not 10 billion? So it's in a form through sound that comes from the source. The source, in this case, is Ramacandra, about Ramacandra, just like Krishna about Krishna. So it's a nice question, but it was at least this much. Hayagriva gave it to Brahma. And where did Hayagriva get it? It's eternal. That's Vedas. They're not created from some place, from the personality of Godhead. He's the source of the Vedas.
Thank you, Guru
Nice
Maharaj.
question. Thoughtful
Krishna.
question. I will.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is, what is the reason that out of all the animals, horse will be chosen for many sacrifices? Is it auspicious? What would be the reason?
I'm not so knowledgeable in that field. I mean, there's goat sacrifice, there's a cow sacrifice, there's a horse sacrifice. But what's the reason behind it and the differences between this and that and the other? I don't know the reason behind it. I could ask people that likely know, but I don't know why those particular animals and why not other ones or something like that.
Thank you. Because most of the time I hear about horse sacrifices, and I
Well, there's-
didn't hear anything about
There's
cow.
there's such a thing as go meda sacrifice, the sacrifice of cow, because that was in the discussion between Lord Chaitanya and Chankazi. Remember?
No,
No? You know who Chankazi is? No.
no, I don't.
Oh, okay. During the past time, before Lord Chaitanya had taken sannyas, he received diksha, mantra diksha, from Ishwar Puri. So he got mantra. Doesn't say what that mantra is, but a mantra, a Gayatri mantra that he received from disciplic succession, and his life completely changed after that. He became a full-on bhakta instead of a scholar. So Nimai Pandit became a bhakta. And when he became a bhakta, he was doing bhakti. He was having his students and all around town engaged in Sankirtan. And it went from the house of Srivas into the public after some time. And in the public, the Brahmanas went to the Muslim king, whose name was Chankazi. And, this fellow, stop this fellow. You're the king. He's doing something that's not in our scriptures and he's spoiling our religion. Stop him, please. So the king, Chankazi, ordered that the chanting be stopped and they broke the mridanga. Lord Chaitanya took exception to that. The very next day, 10,000 angry Bengalis went through all of Navadvip and all the marketplaces. And at night, they went right to the house of Chankazi. And Chankazi was hiding under his bed. Angry Bengalis, 10,000 of them, look out. He was hiding under his bed. So Lord Chaitanya sat underneath his window. Oh, Chankazi, come on down. We're friendly. The Chankazi came. And because the Chankazi was a learned person, he wasn't just like a fanatical, he was a learned person. He knew his own scripture, he knew the Hindu scriptures. So Lord Chaitanya said to Chankazi, I just have one question for you. Why is it that you kill your mother in your religion? What are you talking about? We don't kill our mother. He said, then Lord Chaitanya, Nimai Pandit said, when a child is young, commonly they take milk from a cow. And in your religion, you kill the cow. So how you can have a religion resting upon killing your mother? Because the cow is your mother. Chand Kazi said to Nimai Pandit, in your religion, there's also Go Medha Yagya, like Ashva Medha Yagya, the horse sacrifice. You have Go Medha Yagya, I know from your scripture. And Nimai Pandit said, no. When the cow is brought to sacrificial fire, it's an old cow. To test the power of the Brahmana, the old cow is placed in the fire, and a young cow comes out of the fire to test the power of the mantra of the Brahmana, not to kill the cow and eat the cow, and to test the quality of the Brahmana. So, back to your question. There's different animals besides horse. And your question is, what's the special thing about a horse? Why? Is there some reason behind selection of a horse? And my comment was there are other animals that are also, but what's the reason behind the horse? I don't know. I can ask, and in the course of my visit here, I'll see if I can find the answer to somebody that knows the answer. But there's more than one kind of animal sacrifice in Vedic texts. At least 3. Goat and horse and cow.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Now, one of the things with the horse sacrifice, this much I've understood from Prabhupada's purports. The horse that's sacrificed, in his next life, he bypasses evolutionary process many times, and quickly, right away, directly, next life becomes a human, rather than going through the evolutionary cycles to get to that stage. So it's beneficial for the living entity that's within the body of the horse. But that doesn't answer your question.
Thank you for connecting so many dots. I heard those stories you mentioned. I didn't remember names.
Okay. Now you remember.
And now you even expanded
Chand
more
Kazi.
to it.
There's more to the story. That when we came here, this is Nimai Pandit to the Chand Kazi. When we came here, you didn't come down to receive us. That's not good courtesy. 10,000 angry Bengalis, it's understandable. But that's not the answer he gave. The answer he gave was, I'll tell you privately. And because he was a quality person. He wasn't just a diplomat or a mercenary, powerful guy. So Lord Chaitanya said, you're in amongst friends, you can share. So he said, last night, after I had broken the drum, last night, I was awoken by this fierce half man, half lion roaring. And he started ripping my body with his nails and warned me, if you ever do this again, you're finished, and roaring. And he said, look, and he lifted his shirt. On his back, there were claw marks from Lord Rishingadev. And I was too afraid. When you came, I was just like hid under the bed. Yes.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is, in Ayodhya Puri, you mentioned like Ramji is living as a human form.
Slowly. I have a hard time.
Ramji is living in as a person, human form.
As if, yes.
In Ayodhya Puri.
Yes.
I was wondering about the personal relationship that the devotees experience in Ayodhya Puri versus Golok Vrindavan.
Well, your question is twofold. Your question is what's their relation and how is it similar or dissimilar from the relation of those in Goloka? That's your question.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Well, that chart that I showed you, there's Ayodhya at the top of Haridham, and then above Haridham is Golokadham. So it's similar but different. The similarity in Ayodhya is they saw him both as human-like, but they also saw his divinity. So there was a mix of Aishwarya or opulence or majesty and human-like. That's Ayodhya. And that's not the same as Goloka. In Goloka, Krishna manifests his opulences, but they see it some other way. Krishna is lifting Govardhan Hill, or etc., etc. They saw it in the way that they saw it. They could not accept. They would sometimes talk amongst themselves and saying, "Who is this boy?" Maybe, but they can't see him as the personality of Godhead. They did not, because the Madhurya is so strong, and in the distinction is in Ayodhya, it's there, but not as strong as in Goloka. So they could sometimes see him as the personality of Godhead.
So they still get to play with him and as parent and friend, all that rasas are still
Human-like,
there.
Yeah.
There.
It's a very special place.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Very special place.
Dandavat Pranam.
Okay, I think we should end. We have something else? You have something else. Look at this. You had the last question.
In the class, you mentioned that Dasharatha had a daughter and she was very important in the Ramayana,
Yeah.
but I never heard of her, so I was just...
Who in the room, scholars of Ramayana, what was the name? Shanta. That was, so Dasarath had no sons but a daughter, and he had a friend, another king who was a friend, and he had no son or daughter. His friend wanted a daughter. So his friend, King Romapada, asked Dasarath, "Could I adopt your daughter and raise your daughter as my daughter?" So Dasarath agreed because they were good friends, and he really was happy to have that service and relationship with the other king. So Shanta became the wife of Rishishringa.
And she was important to the Ramayana because she...
Because when Dasarath came and made this request of Rishishringa to come to his kingdom, it was like, he was obliged. The adopted daughter is Dasarath's son, or excuse me, Dasarath's daughter. So he said yes. It's important in that sense. And she, Shanta, was she's like the four brothers and one sister. Very important. Be Ramachandra's sister. How'd you like to be Ramachandra's sister? No way. But she was special. That was the force behind your question. What's special about her? The sister of Ramachandra. And she had a role to play in the Leela in Ramayana. We don't hear so much about her. After that, we hear a lot about the four brothers. We don't hear so much about her. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.